The perfect storm is brewing for oil prices to be upwards of triple digit again. Okay. The markets are tightening. OPEC Plus is working well together with one another to balance the markets. Shale in fracking, the shale fracking industry is falling apart. They continuously are bleeding out, and that is greatly reducing the oil infrastructure and oil output. Iran and Saudi Arabia tensions are increasing, and the vaccines is causing a lot of excitement in the economy. And so as we get out of 2020 and go into 2021, everybody is expecting oil demand to return. All right, I'm Sean Pruitt, president of Kingdom Exploration. If you like this channel, please subscribe. Let's get into this thing. Oil prices, WTI Crude, $48.41 per barrel. Brent Crude, $51.53. I'm very happy to see these prices increase. North American rig count, right now rig count is 338, frac spread 159, and total production for U.S. is 11.10 million barrels a day. Now, this is a supply and demand chart dating back all the way to January 2007 and to November 2020. Okay, so as you can see here, our demand for oil demand was 85 million barrels a day, and our supply was 84 million barrels a day. So they kept it very tight, okay? Now, that's why oil prices went up to $150 a barrel, because the supply versus demand stayed pretty close to each other. And then we had a economy crashed, and prices dropped, demand dropped, output dropped along with it, okay? And so then there was an upswing here. Now, this was the beginning of the shale revolution. As you can see here, we went from global oil supply of 84 million a day, and we climbed as high as 101 million barrels a day for global oil supply. But it was okay because demand grew with the supply. But then we peaked in December 2019. We peaked for 101 barrels a day for output, and demand at 101 barrels a day. Then, as you can see here, we crashed due to COVID. Global oil demand went from 101 million barrels a day to 80 million. This was the beginning of the end of the fracking industry. This is what made all the banks realize, hey, we got to get out of this oil business, all right? And this was the beginning of the end of American control of oil prices, okay? And Saudi Arabia and Russia took advantage of this moment in time to flood the markets with oil to crush American oil and gas, the shale fracking industry, okay, which is setting the stage for triple-digit oil, okay? Now, they are tightening the supply versus demand. Right now, global oil demand is 95.59 million, and global supply is 93 million. So they're keeping the supply lower than the demand to tighten the oil market, okay? And so I want to talk about Iran. This is a great video talking about what is actually happening between Iran and Saudi Arabia. And so as Iran increases tensions in the Middle East, and as the oil markets tighten, we're going to see an escalation in oil prices. Let's watch this video.
An oil tanker was hit by an explosion earlier today at the port of Jeddah in Saudi Arabia. Tensions in the area have been rising after the U.S. ramped up sanctions on Saudi's ally, Iran. Joining us from Dubai is Bloomberg's Matthew Martin with more on the attacks and what's happening in the region. Matthew, it's so great to have you on Quick Take today. Tell us more about what happened in Jeddah today, and do we know if anyone was injured?
Well, when we first heard about this attack in the early hours of this morning, the owner of the ship confirmed that there had been an incident with one of its tankers at the port in Jeddah. More recently, just in the last half an hour or so, the Saudi Ministry of Energy has put out a statement confirming the attack, describing it as an attack launched by an explosive-laden boat, which caused a small fire, did not result in any casualties, fortunately, and no significant damage to the oil facilities there, and nor any impact on oil supplies. So, although this attack has caused some skittishness in the markets today, it does seem to have been able to be addressed, the fire extinguished fairly quickly, but the port did have to be closed down, and we're still waiting to see news of whether the port is going to reopen. But the Saudis are saying that in terms of fuel supplies to the market, that has not been impacted by this incident, and as I say, no one fortunately has been injured on this occasion.
Yeah, that's some good news. Matthew, we've seen a few of these attacks of late, and I want to get your take because you yourself went to inspect the damage after one of the attacks. Is Saudi Arabia unable to stop them, and how vulnerable are oil installations?
Yeah, so this is the fourth attack on Saudi Arabia's oil infrastructure just in the past few weeks. It obviously follows on from the much more significant attacks which we had last year on the Abqaiq and Kharis facilities, which were much more substantial in terms of their impact. But again, the feeling from the Saudis is that they have been able to deal with these attacks as they occur. No one has been injured in any of these attacks so far. The supplies to the oil markets have not been affected, but it does suggest that the Saudis are unable to stop these attacks happening. As much as they're able to deal with the effects once the attacks occurred, they're not able to actually prevent them, and the question has to be asked of whether it is a matter of time before something more significant happens, which does either have the unfortunate cause of injuries or loss of life, or also the economic impact of hitting the supplies of oil to the oil market, which will then obviously have potentially big global ramifications as well.
Yeah, Matthew, to that point, I mean, in talking to the workers on these installations, do they feel vulnerable? Do they feel safe? Is this, give us the sense that you just found on your trip in speaking to these people, because obviously this isn't the job that they signed up for.
Well, no, exactly. The incidence does, particularly now, the incidence of these attacks does seem to be picking up pace. And as much as Aramco has, incorporated drills in terms of how to respond to these things much more into its emergency and disaster planning than it perhaps did a few years ago, as I mentioned earlier, that there hasn't been any injuries or deaths so far. It looks like we're probably going to see these attacks continue to occur somewhat over the next coming weeks and months, and so questions do have to be raised about whether we're going to get an incident which does cause loss of life, does cause injuries, and I think people working on these sites are becoming increasingly cognizant of that fact, and there is some more degree of worry, I think, starting to creep into the workforce, that as much as there is a track record of dealing with these things well and safely in the past, then it's obviously unforeseeable how the future attacks might pan out, and most of these attacks have occurred at night when things are more thinly staffed, but these things can, of course, when you have fires at oil installations, the potential for things to get out of control is always a possibility.
So, bottom line, the tensions are increasing. They're becoming more frequent, okay? And so it's only a matter of time until they hit a facility that could greatly increase the effects on the oil prices, okay? And so what doesn't make any sense, I was reading the comments, is that a lot of people said, wait a minute, Saudi Arabia and Iran are allies. Why is this happening, okay? Well, in the past, I've talked about this, and people said I was crazy. Iran would never bomb Saudi Arabia. Well, they started bombing him. Why? Because I truly believe that Russia is the one pulling the strings here. They're nothing more than a proxy for Russia to escalate oil prices. I mean, if they're willing to curb production and manipulate oil prices to increase prices, then why wouldn't they start dropping bombs on key facilities? I mean, Russia's playing on both sides, okay? They're working with Saudi Arabia. They're working with Iran. They're working with America. I mean, they play dirty, okay? And so Putin has to win. Otherwise, think about how he's going to look. I mean, they changed the law just so he could serve longer as the prime minister, as the president of Russia. Okay, he has to turn this economy around because he's not going to leave a legacy of embarrassment. Okay, he's got way too much pride for that, and so the only way to win this game is by cheating. Is using his military power. All right, guys, I'm Sean Pruitt, president of Kingdom Exploration. Really exciting times for the oil and gas industry. And if you like this channel, please subscribe. If you're interested in learning more about what we do, we develop oil and gas properties. Right now is the time to get involved. We're in conventional deals, not shale, not fracking, where it costs a ridiculous amount of money to produce a barrel of oil. We're in conventional, and it's much less expensive. So if you want to learn more, give us a call. Look in the description below. Request information with the link below, and we'll talk soon. Thanks.